Welcome to the LBF Church Podcast, where we talk about topics that help us grow in our affections towards Jesus and also grow more equipped to follow him in all the ways he's leading us. I'm Dan Franklin, here with Lori Baez.
Hello, everybody.
So Lori and I are going to talk about connecting kids with God.
Yep.
And Lori, you got some experience in that?
I have a little bit.
Yeah. Been a mom for 15 years? 15
years, yes.
And then our Life Kids Director for 5 years.
Yes.
That's great, because you came on 6 months after me, so I'm able to track that.
You got rid of the newbie status
That's
when
right.
I came in.
I was more than happy for that. So we are going to talk about some very practical ways to do this. But first, one of the things that we like to do from time to time on the podcast is give some recommendations. So we're going to give some kind of kid and family-centric recommendations for everyone. So Lori, why don't you start with yours?
It's actually tied to the curriculum that we use on Sunday mornings, and it's called Homefront. It's a magazine. There's one subscription that comes out every month. There is a cost that is associated with it, but it's not astronomical by any means. And so that you can get a digital version, or if you're old school and like the paper version, you can still get a paper magazine that's delivered to your home. It has got fantastic just recipes. It's got activities for your kids, devotional ideas, how to stay focused on spiritual parenting in your home. And it's a really well done magazine. So if you're interested, you just go to homefront.com and you can order it.
Yeah, and we'll link to that also on the episode. And that would be neat, because if people did that, it might sync up a little bit with what people are experiencing in Life Kids.
Yeah.
So my recommendation is, if you've been around, you probably will have heard of this. One of the classic kind of books on parenting called Shepherding a Child's Heart by Ted Tripp. It's a wonderful book. I forgot to bring my copy to show it off. But you can look it up. You can find it on Amazon. I actually just found, I checked before we started the episode, and it's only $3.79 right now on Amazon, which is a steal. So go out and get it. It's a great book, because it isn't simply dealing with how do you get your kids to obey, or technically how do you run sort of a spiritual household. It's talking about the whole idea that our job as parents, where we're trying to get our kids' hearts to Jesus. So I found it a really wonderful, helpful book, Shepherding a Child's Heart by Ted Tripp. So now we're going to get into our topic, which is connecting kids with God. Now, as we were talking before, we're going to talk sort of about a big picture message that we want to express. And then we want to give a bunch of ideas just to be helpful. So why don't you kind of lead us into what's the big picture message that you have for parents and educators and people that are trying to help kids get connected with God?
I think it's just keep it simple. Like, we want to make sure that we have all our ducks in a row and make it so much more complicated. And sometimes we get frozen in not moving because we don't have this or that lined up, or we don't have all the information in front of us and we're afraid to do something. So if the big picture is just do something, pick something and keep it simple.
Yeah, my wife's favorite G.K. Chesterton quote is, if a thing is worth doing, it's worth doing poorly. And the idea is just, and I think what your message is so positive, we can get frozen. I know I can get frozen thinking, I need the 10-point plan of what I'm going to do here. And instead, I think as we look at Scripture, even going all the way back to Deuteronomy 6, which is in some ways sort of the John 3:16 for the Jewish people, where the command to love the Lord your God with all your heart. Moses then goes on to say, these commands that I give you today are to be on your hearts. Impress them on your children. Talk about them when you sit at home, when you walk along the road, when you lie down, and when you get up. Tie them as symbols on your hands. Bind them on your foreheads. Write them on the doorframes of your houses and on your gates. And just that holistic idea of, he's not saying the way that you teach kids about God is only sit them down in a chair across from you and lecture them. But just as you're eating, as you're getting up, as you're driving them around, as you're on walks.
Completely organic and in natural conversation that is going on. Most definitely. I know even when my kids were young, I would say I was definitely frozen. Like, well, I don't have the right devotional. And then we would not do anything. And when I finally just sort of was like, you know what? I'm going to point out this amazing sunset that God has given us and how thankful I am for that. It was so much better for me, because it wasn't this super structured thing where we could just organically do stuff
Yeah.
throughout your day.
Yeah. So big favor. We are going to give some specific ideas.
Yeah.
We both have kind of prepared some ideas just to be helpful as resources, but big picture message, don't wait till you have the perfect plan. Like Lori said, try stuff.
Yep.
Do something.
Yeah.
Don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. I think we've said the same thing over.
Yeah.
All right.
I think we're good.
Good. We'll get into ideas now. Why don't you just start sharing both as a mom with your own kids, and then just also with your experience with the different ages in the Life Kids ministry.
Okay.
What have been some things that you've seen or some things that you've tried that you would encourage other people to try?
Well, I mean, none of them are earth-shattering brand new ideas where you're like, oh, I've never thought of that before. But I know when my kids were younger, even then, sometimes it's hard to sit down, all of you at the dinner table, but we would pick at least one night a week that we were all down in kind of a relaxed dinner. And we would go around the table and just share what we had seen God do, or what we appreciate about what God has provided in creation, or those types of things. And I think another just great thing is at night praying. Praying in not just in the, not that these aren't great, because I'm not saying that, but not just saying like, okay, we're going to pray for Johnny because he's sick, and we're going to pray for a good day tomorrow. And yeah, those are important.
Sure.
We definitely want to do that. But also praying out of thankfulness, or doing other types of things, which I'll talk more about with giving praise to God. And I know in Life Kids, we have done in our 1st through 4th grade just different types of worship, because a lot of times kids come in and they think that worship is singing.
Just singing.
Just singing.
That worship equals singing.
Yes, that there's nothing outside of that. And so we have done a whole feature on worship through dance, worship through art, worship through journaling, and even, just words of praise, and through night of worship.
Yeah.
Up here with the kids, we did that. And some of the kids were like, we're going to write God and say thank you. Kind of puzzled.
Just baffled by the
baffled,
idea.
like, why would we do that?
Just prayer is asking God stuff.
Right,
And you were
exactly.
kind of shattering that prayer involves that, but there's many aspects.
There's many aspects. And so we simply just talked about, like, do you like to be thanked for the things that you do? And they were like, well, yeah. Okay, well, God really likes to be thanked for everything that he provides us. And so to give kids the space to be able to do that. And again, it could simply be on a Saturday afternoon, or even at a soccer game. It doesn't have to be the perfect thing where you give them a piece of paper and say, hey, why don't you draw a picture about something that you're thankful for today? Or why don't you draw a picture of how you see God? We were like, do you see him as a lion? Just kind of getting their imaginations out there. And every child's different. Some like to draw. Some like to write. So pick the thing that your child enjoys doing and encourage them to do that.
Yeah. And I like what you were talking about, just because I think there is a mix, especially as parents, but also for children's ministry workers or aunts and uncles and grandpas and grandmas, but where there's this mix of, there's a power in routine. Like you talked
Most
about,
definitely.
all right, kind of that once a week, and probably there was a point that your kids were used to, you or Mike would initiate it, and they would know, all right, we know this practice. We're used to this idea here.
Yeah.
So there is the power of routine. Like
Yes.
we've seen that with our kids, where whether it's Bible, we have the LBF Bible reading plan, and frequently I'll just read a portion of it and give a little devotional, and sometimes we'll talk. I take the boys sometimes on thankful. We just go for a walk and we take turns saying, God, thank you so much for, and they fill in the blank. And now if we're all going for a walk and I say, all right, we're going to take turns making this a thankful walk, they're not baffled by this idea that there's a power in routine.
And I think it's also important to keep in mind, say you go for the walk. And you're asking them to be thankful, and they seem like they're not really engaged, and they're being silly and wacky in what they're doing. And not really taking it to like the hopes that you hope
Right.
the conversation is
You
going
had
to be
this
in.
glorious idea in your mind of the heavens opening and your
right.
kids saying, Mom, I love Jesus.
Yes, and you feel the Holy Spirit wind
Yeah.
blowing on your face. But it doesn't happen like that. And they're like, I'm thankful my hair's parted down the middle, you know. I just want to say, kids are kids. They're going to be silly and wacky, but underneath that, they do take notes
Sure.
of what they're doing. And with the power of routine, they'll learn. And what may feel awkward, where they feel like they want to be silly at the beginning, becomes normal. And they get more engaged with it. So I just want to encourage parents out there, like, don't give up.
Yes.
You know, it's like that Pinterest thing where you try the thing on Pinterest and it's a total fail. It looks nothing like what you envisioned it. It's okay. Just try it again. It may be better the second time or the third time around. So, yeah.
I'll take your word for it that that's a great analogy. I don't know.
It is. It
All right,
is
that's
if
good.
you're a woman and you've gotten
gonna
to
assume-
fail on Pinterest.
I'm sure that there's lots of people who are like, I know what she's talking about.
Yes.
Yeah, and what you were saying about the whole perseverance idea, if you're changing a kid's habit, like I was thinking my middle son, Jack, my 10-year-old, loves riding his bike now. And it was miserable teaching that kid to ride a bike. And now it's second nature. If we're thinking about, you know, if you're a parent of teenagers or your kids are later elementary school, doing some of these things is probably going to take some perseverance. It's a change of habit. And we don't expect a kid the first time he gets on a bike to ride like Lance Armstrong minus the steroids. You know, we expect there to be a learning curve. So we can expect a learning curve with this kind of thing.
Yeah, and I guess I don't want you parents to feel alarmed when you're like, okay, we're going to pray. And the kids are like, I don't want to pray.
Right.
Okay, well, tonight I'm going to pray, and then tomorrow night you can pray. You know, those things, because it might feel uncomfortable for them. And so they're like, I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
But just if you continue little bits here and there, it becomes more normal. So.
And there is the routine like we're talking about, but you also talked about just the idea of kind of the spontaneity. We see a sunset, we're going to talk about it. We just got a phone call and found out that this person is sick. We're going to stop what we're doing right now and pray for them. So there is that whole idea, and I think it's similar to what Moses is saying in Deuteronomy. It is just worked into their lives as they see, especially mom and dad, responding in ways that God is not somebody who lives at church or lives in the Bible or lives at dinner time. God is with us and responding in very natural ways. Oh, God willing, they pick that up and see God is not only when I'm at Sunday school. I can talk to him right now.
Yeah. And just even what you're saying with circumstantial things, like, I don't know, a child's being bullied, and so you're praying that other child leaves them alone and they have a really good week, instead of being like, oh, hey, glad that worked out. But to take the moment to point out and be like, see, God answered your
Making
prayer.
the connections.
You know, he heard you, and this is what happened. This was God working this week. So,
on another occasion, because I was thinking about this in advance, because we have the things that we plan. I think it is good if you're thinking about doing this as a parent. Hey, plan it out. Figure out if you say, hey, Wednesday evening is the evening we're all at the dinner table. You know, think of it. Be purposeful. But also, we're given occasions. One of the occasions, as I was thinking about this, is just any time we're in an occasion when we're disciplining our child, it's an opportunity for the gospel.
Right.
It's not simply an opportunity for us to correct behavior, which is important. That's part of our job as parents.
Absolutely.
But there's an opportunity to talk about sin and to talk about forgiveness. I mean, I remember my mom doing that all the time when, you know, it's like the discipline was not just a boom, it's done. There was a process, and there was restoration, and there was prayer involved in it. And I've loved getting to see at different times my kids' hearts soften as we've gone from I'm mad at dad because I'm in trouble to now we're talking about the fact that I have sinned too, and we all have sin, and if Jesus didn't do what he did, and now we're thankful, and now we're joining together as two people who have been forgiven by Jesus and praying that there's power, and if you're an involved parent, the occasion for discipline is pretty frequent. Yeah. So those opportunities do abound.
They do in a multitude of ways. And just another resource that popped into my head that I forgot to mention is here at the church for any age from 2 years through 6th grade, we have a little home front paper that actually features what we're going to be talking about the following week. And it has devotional questions and the Bible verse that we're focusing on. So if you're like, I'd really love to do a devotional with my kids, I don't know where to get started. Sure. It's a free resource that's here every Sunday that connects to what they're going to be talking about that following week anyway. And so I know there's several parents here that use that every week. Once a week, they sit down and they utilize one element. You don't even have to use all of it. Yeah. You can pick one thing on it and use it.
And that's perfect. So, if somebody's stuck and saying, I want to do this, where's my starting point? Here's a great resource to start with.
So I just forgot to mention about that. But that might be a scheduled one that you use.
Exactly. Good. So, well, here. All right. We're both going to kind of give a final word on this. So I'll go first, and then I'll hand it to you. So my final word is to everyone, but in particular to dads, because my experience tells me a lot of times moms are ready to have the conversations with the kids, and we as dads tend to be more hesitant about that. So my challenge, and something I've been trying to do as a dad, is to say, when I'm in doubt about whether I should have a conversation or have a follow-up or have a spiritual conversation with my kid, I'm going to assume the answer is yes. And if you're a dad out there, your kids will disproportionately respond to you being willing to help make those connections. And so step forward. If you're in doubt, there are definitely people out there that need to be told, all right, sometimes you don't need to have the conversation. But I think many of us, and especially many of us as dads, we would do well to be more active in those. So how about for you? What's kind of final word you'd like to share?
I think the final word for me is just to remind you again, just go.
Yeah.
Go out and pick one thing and try it. I think the other thing is just utilize those little moments in your day. Yeah. Car rides, great time.
Captive audience.
Right there. And I'm not saying lecture them and make it where they're like, oh, I don't want to be in the car. But just those are great moments for a 3 or 4 minute conversation while they're in the car and you're going someplace. So keep it simple, do something, and just try to work it into your everyday, whatever you're doing.
Absolutely.
So,
Good. Well, thanks for taking the time, if you're watching or listening to this, for checking this out. With other episodes, if you want to check them out, you can just go on to our website, lbf.church. Click on the little tab that says the feed, and you'll find videos of all previous episodes of the LBF Church podcast. You can also download it on iTunes. And if you do, leave a review or leave a rating, because that'll help us get the word out to more people as we look to put out episodes that help people grow in their affections towards Jesus and grow more equipped to follow him. So for Lori Baez, I'm Dan Franklin, and this is the LBF Church podcast.